Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is SIE Consulting Group, our exclusive webinar on ServiceNow SAM Pro. I'm joined by my colleague Blanca Nieves and then Lori Strout. Wherever you're joining us from today, welcome. We'll dive right into it. So today we're going to cover the strategies and insights associated with ServiceNow SAM Pro. My name is Adam McWayne. Essentially, I've been helping federal agencies for most of my career. In the last 8 years, I've been working in the software asset management space for large organizations, again, mostly in the government. So the topics we're going to be covering today are not exclusive to the government, although we will have a couple of sections that do highlight what's unique in terms of challenges government agencies face with ServiceNow and with SAM Pro. Next, I'll introduce my colleague, Blanca.
Hi, everyone. My name is Blanca Nieves. I am a Las Vegas local. I've been practicing with ServiceNow specifically since 2015. My goal is to help companies reduce operating expenses with ServiceNow. It's a pretty great tool, and I'm excited to help you folks see a little bit more into what you get with that product. IT asset management is awesome in general, but with ServiceNow, I'm excited to show you guys what the difference it can make.
Thanks, Blanca. About our company, since 2016, which is also when I began, the company has helped federal agencies optimize its software assets. We have team members proficient in all the major SAM tools, and we've worked specific with implementing, configuring, or using tools such as Bellarc, Flexera, ServiceNow. We've worked with HPE, we've worked with CA-SAM and Aerosint, and we also have a former employee of Snow, which was a leading software provider who worked for the company before it was bought by Flexera. However, even though we've worked with a lot of tools, it's very important that I stress this company is vendor agnostic. We certainly have some preferences for certain tools over others, but when you ask us which tool we prefer, the answer will always be it depends, because it does depend. It depends on what you already own or what you might have already implemented. It depends on what challenge or on what objective you're trying to get that tool to fulfill. In fact, most of our customer engagements have begun with tool sets already deployed. So our company will never press you to buy new technology, at least without a baseline understanding of the tools already available to you. And we acknowledge that technology and tools are really only a piece of a good SAM program. You also need people, you need process, and maybe most important, you need the executive sponsorship and the resources to implement. So if you can go to next slide, please, Lori, we'll talk about today's agenda. I'm going to start with an overview of SAM Pro. It is a relatively new tool in the SAM market space, but it's also being adopted at a high rate. There are a lot of organizations that have existing ServiceNow footprints, and the addition of SAM Pro seems to work fairly well with integrations of those other ServiceNow capabilities. Next, we're going to examine the unique hurdles that federal agencies encounter. And federal agencies have unique challenges specific to compliance and the law, and certainly the existence of silos. But many of the challenges that we'll explore are also applicable in other industries as well. We'll highlight some of the common pain points and compliance risks. And I actually did a full 45-minute webinar on this topic a few weeks ago, and we have a copy of that on our YouTube channel. We're going to spend a lot of time actually today talking about preventing costly audits by using SAM Pro. So Blanca will be giving us a practical demonstration and pull up some use cases in how she's been able to help prevent or mitigate audits using the tool. We'll talk about offering practical tips for optimizing license usage and minimizing overspending. That's really the key here, striking that balance between what you own and what you need. And then we'll finish up with the key strategies and best practices for SAM, hopefully equipping you with the insights to maximize your ROI and ensure long-term success. So we have an exciting agenda. I'm going to get into the heart of it, but before I do, just a couple of important logistics on the next slide. As I mentioned at the top of this call, it is being recorded. We will share the presentation and recording with you at a later date. We do encourage questions, comments, and shout outs. I saw one already. Last point, I already mentioned we're vendor agnostic. Again, this is not a sales pitch for ServiceNow or SAM Pro. It's really just an acknowledgement of the existence of ServiceNow in this space and the growing share in which SAM Pro is being used. So if it happens to be a tool that you're either currently using or considering using, you'll find this information useful. I hope so. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to turn it over here to Blanca, and I just want to have her explain to our audience what SAM Pro is all about and why we think it's a relevant conversation for today's webinar.
So ServiceNow SAM Pro, it's a comprehensive software asset management solution tailored to meet the unique needs of federal agencies. It provides real-time insights into an organization's software assets, offers detailed visibility into license usage, expenditure, and compliance status. With SAM Pro, agencies can optimize costs, prevent audits, and streamline license management processes efficiently. Its robust features and proactive compliance management capabilities empower agencies to effectively manage their software assets and maximize their IT investments.
Thanks, Blanca. Let's talk about some of the challenges federal agencies specifically are facing. And we're going to talk about how that relates to ServiceNow SAM Pro. Some of the most common challenges we see agencies facing are compliance risks and audits. So federal agencies operate within a highly regulated landscape. Compliance with stringent requirements is paramount, and requirements can take the form of both the law or legal authority, but also compliance with intellectual property rights and license agreements. If you do not have adequate SAM practices, you are very likely exposed to potential penalties such as fines, legal liabilities, and reputational damage. So audit risk is real. Unfortunately, when it comes to software sales in the federal government space, the landscape is pretty well defined, and one of the key sources of revenue from many of the leading software vendors is to audit their customers. They understand that non-compliant use is a way for them to capture cost or capture what they're owed from those non-compliant usage. So that's certainly a big issue when it comes to the federal landscape for software asset management. One of the reasons that auditing is a prevalent exposure risk is because the license structures of these software vendors is so complex. They change frequently, they can vary between customers and products. They evolve as fast, if not faster, than the technology itself. Things that are managed in the cloud are going to be licensed differently than things that are managed on-prem. And that becomes more complicated if you're trying to migrate systems to off government-owned infrastructure. So managing these complex structures is a challenge. Having things like volume license agreements or subscription models, understanding the difference between those and perpetual licenses, these are all the nuances that are going to be unique to your organization and for the software vendors that you own. And then the last point on this slide is just the visibility and control is very limited. What we mean by this is that there is a very reactive approach to SAM for many of the federal agencies we've worked with. It becomes an afterthought where people understand that license requirements or restrictions are an element of the software that they're using, but it's not at the forethought. It becomes an afterthought. And so the ability to have real-time insight into your software deployment or utilization, the ability to centralize that and look across siloed environments is a major hurdle that agencies face, and it can lead to a sense or a true nature of lack of control. I want to spend just a minute recapping a presentation I did a few weeks ago. It was called Bite-Sized Wisdom, Unveiling the 5 Lessons Learned from Megabyte. If you weren't able to join, as I mentioned, it's on our YouTube channel, and it took a closer look at Megabyte, which is the federal legislation that mandates software asset management. It is actually a candidate to be replaced by new legislation called SAMOSA that is somewhere in the legislative pipeline. But until new legislation passes, Megabyte is the law of the land. And during that session, we explored the critical role of SAM tools. But lesson 3 from that webinar was that tools matter, but there is no easy button. So obviously good SAM tools are great if you have them, and they're really a necessity to managing the massive portfolios of software licensing for large organizations. Some of our customers spend hundreds of millions a year on software deployments, and that can encompass thousands of products, thousands of software license contracts. So in order to scale and centralize all of that information, technology really is key. It also can obviously help with automating the compliance assessments, but it's really crucial to recognize that SAM tools alone are not a standalone solution. An holistic approach to SAM starts with having the right team, the right people, and the use of tools, governance, and collaboration, but also sponsorship is also key. It's really hard to get anything done in this space if there isn't executive level support for SAM as a practice. So let's jump into our SAM Pro demo, and I'm going to start with audit prevention. So as I mentioned before, software vendors or regulatory bodies can audit, and they can and do audit software agencies, and these can become a nightmare, not only for the workforce that needs to manage them, but for the budget and the bottom line. And that can lead to significant financial penalties. It can lead to reputational damage for the organizations experiencing them, and they can be really extensive. Agencies can incur fees for unauthorized software use. And when you're talking about deployments and installation or usage of software, if any of that exceeds the terms of the licensing, the fees and liabilities can and will very quickly escalate. And if you think about it, it makes sense given the nature of automation, right? A couple of accidental keystrokes or mismanagement of, say, a trial license can really drastically impact the agency's budget and its resources. Not to mention the costs associated with lawyers and analysts and the legal proceedings or any of the essential elements to defend the agency against an ongoing audit is taxing in financial liability and also resource. On the next slide, we'll talk a minute about reputational damage because this is real, even if it's harder to quantify. Not only could your agency face heavy fines and a lot of potentially unnecessary work or effort to resolve an audit, but it can lead to reputational damage that could include erosion of public trust and confidence in the agency's ability to fulfill its mission. It can impact budgets for future years. It can impact vendors' willingness to work with you or willingness to trust you if you have a record of non-compliant usage. And the last major point I wanted to cover regarding audits and the costs that agencies face when managing them is to the operational disruption. I talked a little bit about the people power and the resources necessary, but it's real, and having to divert valuable time and skilled resources away from core activities and operations in order to address an audit request, it is unfortunate. Obviously, we're all strapped in the government space with resources, and any time that we need or dedicate to consuming resources is going to cost operational efficiencies and productivity of the organization. So just an acknowledgement of these audits aren't free, even if you're found to be not liable financially. The reputational damage and the operational disruption are real costs to the agency as well. So I'm going to hand the keys back to our SME Blanca, and I want to talk about how ServiceNow SAM Pro can look at the visibility and the usage and your license entitlements. So can you show us how the tool helps automate that and why this is significant for our federal folks?
So, ServiceNow SAM Pro has a tool called the Software Asset Workspace. This tool continuously gathers data on software deployments, usage patterns, and license entitlements across the agency's IT environment. So, with a combination of software discovery, you have SCCM and JAMF, and you also have direct integrations and indirect integrations. You can get a full scope of software usage in your agency, licensing, whether it's over or underutilized, and everything in between. Through the proactive monitoring and tracking, SAMPRO detects potential compliance issues before they escalate and enables you to take corrective actions swiftly. This allows agencies to identify and address compliance gaps in real time. You can easily ensure adherence to software licensing agreements and regulatory requirements, mitigating the risk of costly audits and reputational damage. By staying proactive, agencies can maintain compliance and optimize their software asset management practices efficiently.
Thank you, Blanca. So when you say proactive monitoring, what I hear is independent and inside the agency monitoring. So is it safe to say it's smart to set up an internal SAM compliance team to protect the agency? And I guess before you answer that, maybe you can just show me how in the tool SAM Pro addresses audit readiness and how an internal compliance team might be able to use it.
Sure thing. I'm happy to discuss the audit readiness features in SAM Pro. So, the first aspect we want to look at is how you're maintaining the information for your contracts. So, by maintaining the detailed contract and license data, agencies can mitigate risk associated with non-compliance, unauthorized software usage, and potential financial penalties. The software model records and entitlement records meticulously record all changes and actions related to software assets and provides you a comprehensive historical record of your activities. But where it really comes alive is SAMPRO's license dashboard. It provides assessments geared toward compliance and spend optimization, and it gives you detailed visuals on your licensing status. It automates many of the reconciliation processes such that asset managers can meet compliance standards with the push of a button. In the license usage section of the software asset workspace, you're provided with an interesting and helpful visualization of your compliance position for each software tracked in ServiceNow. And then you also have the ability to bookmark or pin your publishers you want to prioritize. You're given a quick overview of some of the key factors, like which products in that publisher suite are currently compliant and expected costs related to that product suite. When you click through to that publisher, you'll be provided more details on your licensing position, progress towards common licensing goals, and the heaviest hitter in this toolkit is the reconciliation options. Much of these activities can be automated such that at the push of a button, you can get one step closer towards a better license position. And it also gives you explicit information as to whether the actions you take directly contribute to your licensing position. Leading right into that is also their ability to have customizable compliance reports. So SAMPRO offers a ton of out-of-box reports, but you also have the opportunity to create customized reports that are tailored to specific requirements of its customers. This is where the customer success dashboard comes in. This allows asset managers to clearly define and track their explicit and unique license management goals with transparency. In the software asset success portal, not only are you filling in the blanks on some of these common goals. When we go up down to scroll down to the bottom, you can actually identify very specific and actionable items and activities and assign them to different users within your workspace and actively track quantifiable goals and activities, which is a great way to keep everything centralized. So, one other thing I want to explore is your ability to customize the license management processes in SAM Pro. So, SAMPRO provides extensive customization options. It allows agencies to create tailored workflows that closely align with their requirements. This customization ensures that license management processes are efficient and effective, enhancing overall productivity. Customizable license management processes enable agencies to adapt quickly to evolving policies, regulations, and industry standards. This adaptability ensures that agencies can incorporate best practices and compliance measures. They can apply them seamlessly into their SAM practices, reducing the risk for noncompliance and associated penalties. Lastly, by customizing license management processes, agencies can enhance the user experience for SAM practitioners. Streamlining workflows, simplifying user interfaces, and automating routine tasks all contribute to a more intuitive and effective SAM Pro platform. This, in turn, makes it easier for practitioners to navigate the system, access relevant information, and perform essential tasks with ease. A key example for this that I've seen happen at multiple companies and agencies is managing your approval requirements for license administration. ServiceNow allows for automated license allocation via their self-service portal. You have endless possibilities here, but the most common implementation I've seen is managing approvals via ServiceNow. So a user can submit an access request for a particular software, and the custom forms and workflows allow you to manage and document a user's justification for the license, approval from managers or directors, and automatically apply that license to a user when all approvals are received. This ties in smoothly with allocation updates for any software tracked in ServiceNow, updating the user's profile with the software entitlement record and updating the entitlement record with the new allocation data.
Great, Blanca. I'm gonna pause for a minute because that was a lot. Thank you so much. A lot of insightful information. And from what I gather, the customization options that you're talking about does seem to offer a number of benefits for the user. And one of the benefits is that it has what you said, unlimited capabilities, right? But I think it's also important for users to understand some of the potential drawbacks or limitations from customization. So can you speak to that a little bit? And based in experience or by demonstrating in the tool, what happens if you over customize your license management process? And specifically, why is that important within ServiceNow?
So, one of the limitations to consider is the complexity that can arise from extensive customizations. Agencies may find themselves navigating intricate workflows that require specialized knowledge to maintain and to troubleshoot effectively. This can hinder collaboration and consistency in license management practices, leading to inefficiencies overall and potential compliance gaps. Additionally, extensive customization may lead to challenges in future upgrades or migrations. Customized workflows may not seamlessly integrate with new features or updates included in SAM Pro, potentially causing compatibility issues or requiring additional customization efforts. Lastly, extensive customization can increase the cost for maintaining your ServiceNow contract due to limits on custom tables and roles.
Great. Yeah, I think it's important for agencies to really carefully weigh the benefits and the limitations of customizations, and most importantly, have governance and control over how customizations get approved and rolled out. Obviously, that's key to striking the balance to meet a specific need, but maintaining your scalability and simplicity. And I think also transferability, right? You talked about having over customized workflows be difficult for new team members to adopt or to understand. You might over engineer what would otherwise be a simple problem. So, can you give us a couple of use cases, Blanca? I know you've spent a number of years working directly with ServiceNow. Can you share a couple or even just a single use case where SAM Pro helped a customer achieve either cost reductions or some of its compliance goals? And most importantly, how that applies to a ServiceNow software contract.
A notable case that I worked on involved a customer's goal to reduce costs and maintain compliance for internal software contracts. They were focusing on their five most expensive software contracts. To achieve this, we implemented several strategic initiatives leveraging SAM Pro. First, we enabled direct integration profiles for tracking SaaS licenses, such as Miro and Lucidchart. By implementing usage tracking and custom workflows, we automated the process of downgrading and revoking licenses based on usage patterns. This resulted in about $600,000 in annual licensing cost savings. The next hurdle was managing licenses that were utilizing single sign on for license administration. So we implemented an SSO integration profile for tracking Okta managed SaaS licensed applications. Like the previous initiative, we implemented usage tracking and software license reclamation with custom workflows to revoke licenses based on usage. In the first year, this initiative yielded about $400,000 in annual license cost savings. In the largest cost savings effort, we implemented custom license and usage tracking through a combination of API communication, SCCM, and JMF usage tracking. These customizations allowed for monitoring, right sizing, and revocation of Adobe licensing, as well as software removal from computer assets based on usage. In the first year, we saw just over $800,000 in cost savings. And I'm very proud to say that the bulk of these features that my team implemented internally were added to ServiceNow as an out of box feature in the recent Vancouver release. All of these features and processes were also integrated with their HR offboarding processes to automate revocation of licenses for exiting employees. So this streamlined the offboarding process and ensured timely compliance with license agreements.
That's awesome, Blanca. I mean, you're talking about actually putting features into the SAM platform and automating the linkage between HR and having employees come on or off the organization and revoking licenses to time for that. It is something I know in our federal space we see all the time. There are just completely different units, even though their dependencies are apparent in that very real example of onboarding and offboarding employees. So let's keep the conversation going with more of the capabilities we wanted to highlight today in this license platform. Can you talk a little bit about licensing models and how ServiceNow customers use licensing models in SAM Pro, and also why they're specifically important for federal agencies?
ServiceNow's reporting capabilities, of course, we've been talking about how they help you with third party purchase licensing, but it can also help you optimize the licensing position of your ServiceNow instance as a whole. So nowadays, ServiceNow licensing is largely based on per user pricing, which can get costly fast. And as customizable as ServiceNow is, they can also impose limitations on how many custom tables and apps you can host in your instance. While ServiceNow does provide some out of box features for monitoring your active users, role assignments, and custom tables and roles, the offerings are rather limited. However, there are powerful reporting and analytics tools included with SAM Pro that allow you to track everything you need through custom reports and dashboards. It lets you optimize your ServiceNow environment to have a strong foundation for negotiations at true up and renewals by keeping all of these activities in check.
We are near the end of our webinar, and I just want to cover some of the final thoughts shared from the team. I would say the most important part of this presentation is just to be cognizant of customizations, right? Having governance and control over who, how, and what gets customized is going to be key. In a perfect world, we could help give you an action plan that would build out your entitlement repository and walk you through the integration process. But we realize you're working with the resources you have, and hopefully some of the highlights Blanca covered will be applicable to your organization. License management is only as effective as the asset manager's diligence in keeping entitlement records up to date. So that means software license management is a practice. Licensing changes, contract changes or renewals, new technology, additions, migrations, retiring assets, all of that is what we mean by keeping records up to date and ensuring that what you're entitled to matches the inventory profile for software you're using. Tools matter. We spent the majority of today's webinar talking about one tool in particular, but there is no easy button, right? Some tools are better at others for certain vendors that you're trying to manage. And depending on what tools you may already use, new technology isn't likely to solve your challenges. Knowing your usage ratios and restrictions is also important. There are parameters within ServiceNow licensing that dictate admin to user ratios, and understanding what those ratios are and what limits you might have is going to be key to ensuring you're not only getting the most out of your SAM Pro tool, but you're not violating the terms of the license agreement to own that SAM Pro tool. We already talked about customization and knowing limits related to that, and also knowing when and how your licensing terms change. Blanca mentioned the Vancouver release of ServiceNow. And if you know or have been around the ServiceNow landscape for a while, you know they name their versions after cities. So we're on the Vancouver release currently, and licensing terms can and will change when new releases occur, especially for your cloud-based products like ServiceNow. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to questions to myself or to Blanca. And please go ahead and, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. We also encourage engagement and collaboration with your colleagues. If you know people that would benefit from this content, please point them our way or share the recording when it becomes available. And I'd also like to alert people to some upcoming webinars we're having related to this topic. The first is a look at artificial intelligence risk management and specifically OMB Memo M2410 compliance. And there are some deadlines associated with that memo this fiscal year. So look for a webinar on that topic early summer. And then like ServiceNow, Flexera is one of the leading asset management tools in the SAM space. Talk through some of the same topics, but how Flexera has different nuances, and that will likely be coming towards the end of the summer. If you happen to know anyone going, or if you yourself are going to the IATAM conference next week in Las Vegas, please reach out. IATAM, if you're not familiar, is the International Association of IT Asset Managers, and they meet every year it's actually in Henderson, Nevada, but there are events also happening in Vegas related to ServiceNow. So a lot of people in the ServiceNow and SAM space in Las Vegas next week. And if you didn't know about it this year, get into SAM, and in 2025, maybe we'll see you in Las Vegas. Until next time, take care, stay tuned for more valuable insights, and thank you and goodbye.